So President Moon Jae-in has said that, and today China marks 70 years of Communist Party rule, and North Korea and China celebrate 7 decades of diplomatic relations on the 6th of this month. Speculations have been on the rise that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un would travel to China in time for the celebration ahead of the resumption of denuclearization talks with the U.S. and a possible third summit with U.S. President Donald Trump. The dialogue momentum that appears to be picking up again. Live in the studio with me to take a step further in is Dr. Stephen Noerper, Senior Director for Policy at New York-based Courier-Society and a Senior Research Fellow or Senior Research Scholar at Columbia University. Dr. Noerper, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Jen.
Now, quite a shift from what we've been seeing in North Korea-U.S. denuclearization talks since the Trump-Kim Hanoi summit in the last couple of months. Now, it appears that the dialogue momentum is finally picking up between the two sides. As a U.S. North Korea policy expert of a long time, have you been picking up those kind of signals from both sides as well?
Well, certainly. There has been movement forward after several months of stasis. With Trump's walkaway from Hanoi, the North Koreans took a time out and recalibrated and evaluated their approach. And it now appears that we're seeing some movement forward, and there is a crack in the veneer. So let's hope that this leads to further discussion. One of the good indicators was President Moon's visit to the United Nations, because there he attempted to really kickstart that process and get the Americans and the North Koreans talking again.
Now, as I mentioned as we opened our talk, there are speculations that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un may visit China in the next couple of days. Now, how good of a chance is that for you, and what does that say about Kim Jong-un's stance heading into negotiations with the United States?
Yes, well, it's a possibility. This would be the 5th meeting between the two in 2 years. Prior to that, there were not meetings once Kim Jong-un had assumed leadership role. So China is looming larger in the North Korean calculus. Clearly, as its major economic and political supporter, there would be some ability then for Kim to garner political support ahead of the next round of negotiations. So do expect him to reach out to China and perhaps Russia as well as he tries to concentrate power behind the negotiating position. He's also looking to create a break in international sanctions. So by going to Beijing, he would certainly strike at that.
Now, if and when we see progress in the working level talks between Pyongyang and Washington, do you foresee a third summit between Mr. Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un as well sometime within this year, and perhaps a location of D.C. or even Pyongyang?
It's certainly a possibility. Clearly, there's motivation on the parts of the leaders. Donald Trump now is distracted at home, especially given the current imbroglio over possible impeachment. He's looking for foreign policy wins ahead of next year's presidential electoral cycle. Kim Jong-un needs economic viability. He needs to try to break those sanctions, and he needs to try to strike at economic modernization, as he's promised the people of North Korea. And for that matter, Moon Jae-in would like to see a win too, especially with the lead up to the April elections.
Well, definitely. But it seems like the world has had enough of the optics, the show and tell kind of diplomacy from the Singapore summit, from the Hanoi summit and whatnot, and the DMZ rendezvous, of course. And now we know that it's substance that matters. We know that we need to see substance heading into the summit, or perhaps we need to see concrete substance that will result in the summit, or perhaps from those summits. In your view, what needs to be done in order for this summit to happen, or what needs to come out from this summit?
Well, it's a significant question because there really is a challenge ahead to try to find substantive progress. And by that, I mean both a declaration by North Korea of its capabilities and allowing in international inspectors for verification. Some analysts feel that they won't budge on that, but for all practical purposes, for the North Koreans to see sanctions relief, even partial relief, they will have to declare some and perhaps allow for verification of some of its new capabilities. So that said, I think it's likely that you'll see working group talks as we're committed to this summer by Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump along the DMZ, and that's a significant next step. But this is a long process, Jen. Denuclearization takes a long time, so we need to adopt a patient attitude because it will take several years for there to be effective denuclearization. There will be setbacks. There will probably be more walkaways. But that doesn't mean we don't try at the process. We really need to find a way to check North Korea's nuclear ambitions and to rein in that capability, which poses a threat to not only the United States, South Korea, and Japan, but East Asia and the international community.
So we should stay a little reserved about both President Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un's remarks that they'll get this done by President Trump's first term.
Well, I think I would allow for it, and there are the political motivators I mentioned. One of the questions will be whether the current concerns in D.C. that surround Trump about these impeachment proceedings will either make him more interested in scoring a foreign policy victory or, for that matter, being distracted and having less attention on the Korean issue.
There have been concerns that the role of the South Korean president had been fading since direct correspondence between Pyongyang and Washington has been ongoing. South Korean president, to a certain extent, appeared to have quelled those concerns by his visit to New York, like you mentioned. Now, what role does Seoul have to play from here on forth?
Well, Seoul has had the critical role. This process would not have existed had it not been for the ball rolling around the Pyeongchang Games and what happened last year in terms of much of the historic progress. So the administration has been put off by North Korea, which has since Hanoi not really communicated very much with it. But to get the ball rolling again, it does require what we've seen, which is Seoul to take an active leadership role. That also moves the Americans because of the U.S.-ROK alliance and because of the fact that there is viability in the process now when Seoul urges it. So we saw an advance of Singapore, Seoul coordinate with Pyongyang, the meeting between Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in at the time. That led to Singapore. And then this time last year when there was some impasse. So the steps at the United Nations on the part of Moon Jae-in and his foreign minister, Kang Kyung-hwa, are important to really get this kick-started. And with Bolton's departure, there appears to be more opportunity now. So cautiously optimistic.
Now, you mentioned this briefly here and there, but we are seeing this impeachment drama play out in Washington. And I'd like to know how that might factor in Trump's North Korea policy, in U.S.'s North Korea policy, in this this North Korean equation. Will this, or how will this impact this North Korean equation?
It's an essential question, and it is on many different international issues. We'll see as this proceeds. The potential charges are very serious, and what's happened with Ukraine is quite significant. This is new territory well beyond the Mueller report. So it does have the potential to draw Trump away from his focus on this. On the other hand, it could motivate him to want to seek foreign policy victories and try to really move forward with the North Koreans. So it would behoove the North Koreans to seize the moment and really move forward at Seoul's behest and Washington's and really try to make some strides forward in deliverables, as we've talked about, in terms of declaration and verification.
All right, Stephen Noerper, Senior Director for Policy at New York-based Corea-Society and Professor at Columbia University. Many, many thanks for making all the way to our studio for this talk today, and we hope to have you again here in the studio again. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.